I would like to welcome everyone to the Roxboro Roundtables. My name is Jessica Putman, and I am the student coordinator for the tables. Today, our topic is the rise of ISIS, and our host today will be Philip Gibbon.
Hi, everybody. I am Phil Gibbon. I'm an adjunct professor of history. I teach contemporary perspectives, human rights, global politics. Thanks, everybody, for coming. This is a really good turnout for what I would argue is a really important set of topics and concerns to discuss and deal with. So what I'm going to do first is just a quick summary of where we want to go with this, some questions, and then I'm going to let our other faculty participants introduce themselves. So the rise of the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS, also known as the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, or simply as Islamic State, has both baffled and terrified the residents of the Middle East and the world at large. As a team of global and regional powers, including Australia, Bahrain, Canada, Denmark, France, Jordan, the Netherlands, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and the United Arab Emirates, the United Kingdom, and the United States pursue the disruption and destruction of ISIS, there seems to be more questions than answers, more confusion and clarity. There is even disagreement over their very name, how they're referred to: ISIS, ISIL, IS. What exactly is it? A terrorist group, a caliphate, a state? So what we're going to do is talk about these things and other big questions that are related. What is ISIS? What do they want? How are they pursuing their objectives? How to explain their rise in popularity, etc. So those are some of the questions we want to address, and I'm just going to pass this off to our faculty participants so we can get some quick introductions.
I'm Raju Parakal, Assistant Professor of International Relations. I teach global politics, contemporary perspectives, and I do most of my research on international politics. So stuff like this is my cup of tea.
That's it?
Sure.
Okay. I'm Stephen Dinero. I have, give or take, devoted my career to the study of the Middle East. I do teach the Area Studies Middle East course here, as well as another course having to do with the Middle East, taught through images like animations, cartoons, that sort of thing. I first visited the Middle East as a high school student, where I did a semester abroad in Israel. I've lived in Israel. I've been throughout the region, including Syria and Lebanon. I have never been to Iraq, and chances are, I guess, I'm never going to be going. But I have spent quite a bit of time, most especially in Egypt, Tunisia, places like that, both in North Africa and in the Middle East, and this is pretty much what I study, so this is a great interest and concern to me.
My name is John Murphy. I'm an architecture major, graduating this year in 2016. I'm currently writing a seminar paper on the rise of Islamic extremism, so this topic is very intriguing to me.
My name is Jay, accounting and marketing major, senior as well. This stuff just interests me, the rise of ISIS and just what's happening in the Middle East, especially with things like control of oil and their impact on oil is really interesting to me.
Luke Santoro of Philadelphia University. I teach human rights, global politics, law and society. I've devoted my research interests are truly genocide, and therefore this has a specific interest for me as well.
My name is David Pagan. I am a senior mechanical engineering student. This topic and issues like this just interest me.
My name is Freddie Gompf. I'm a political science major. I'm here through the National Student Exchange from the University of Oregon.
My name is Lauren Jabe, and I am a senior law and society student. I've written a couple papers on groups similar to ISIS for my studies through the global portfolio.
My name is Christopher Donnelly. I'm a junior for business management, and I just finished a month-long research process and eventually presenting about the economic effects of ISIS/ISIL.
Okay, looks like a good group and diverse backgrounds and interests. And I'm really interested. I'll be really interested to hear about, especially the students that are working on their portfolios or seminar projects that deal with some of these issues. We might as well start with some of the basics about the ladybug on my
It's ISIS drones.
Yeah.
ISIS drones.
Their drones are smart.
About some of the basics. What is ISIS and what do they want?
Well, can we call them a state? That's the question. Or can we call them a terrorist organization? I think that's where we should start.
Sure.
Yeah.
What is
So
the
let's
difference?
talk about, there are three names on the table for us to choose from. ISIS, which is Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. Then there is the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, just ISIL, or just plainly Islamic State. I mean, I have a pick from the three, but I would want to hear others if they had.
Well, it seems to me that in order to choose which of those you're going to refer to them as, that depends on how much you think they're trying to control. I mean, if you think they're just trying to control Iraq and Syria, then they're ISIS. But if they're trying to control the Levant, which includes, I think, Jordan,
Yes.
and there's a couple other places in there, then you would want to call them ISIL. And also, I think, depending on which way you refer to them, you're kind of giving them more power or considering them more of a threat.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say you're giving them more credit than they're worth. In each instance, you're saying they're a state. In every instance, and I do not see them as a state. Not at all. I don't believe that they are a state or ever will be.
Yeah. I'm actually going to go back to their history. So that's why I believe of the three, I think ISIL is the one. Sorry, the ISIS is the one that relates closely to that because. Sorry, ISIL. I'm just confusing myself. See, so many names. ISIL. Because if you go back to it, it's their Syrian connection. Now it's there, but if you go back to their history, the Syrian connection was not that strong. Now Raqqa in Syria is their headquarters, but if you look at their history, they're predominantly started in Iraq, and that's where they grew. And they were actually kicked out of Syria because they became so violent for the Syrian rebels. And the rebels said, we don't want to deal with these people, though they're here to help us because they're too violent for us. So they went back to Iraq. So their thing is mostly Iraq, and their ambitions are also over the Levant. So that's my pick of the three.
I think maybe it would be helpful because depending on what the knowledge base is here in this room, if we describe who these folks are, what they're doing, if we can try to get into heads of people who we really can't understand them. We can try, but we can't. But if you try to get into the heads of these people and imagine where they're coming from, not necessarily in a literal sense, but maybe in a literal sense, if not in a figurative sense, then maybe you'll see why I say they're not a state. I mean, who are these people and what are they doing? And from my perspective, the more, bless you, the more that I understand them, I see them as not a state so much as a group of people that the best I can give them, the furthest I would go, is that they're the equivalent of, and yes, I'm Sicilian, so I can say this, they're like the mafia. They're a bunch of rogue thieves. They're heterosexist, needless to say. These are people who feel emasculated, both by Western European Zionist forces, and now they're expressing that anger. And by the way, does that sound familiar? I think some of the events that have happened in this country of late. They're predominantly male, but there are women who are attracted to this, by the way, and we know that, right? How many women who, marry guys in jail who are mass murderers? These are the kinds of people we're dealing with, and so I don't know that we call them a state or whatever, but is this a state or is this a bunch of crazy guys who have grievances?
This is Jay, left-sided sophomore. Well, I think to debate if that's a state or just a bunch of people acting like mafias, we have to look into four fundamental elements that put up a country together: sovereignty, government, population, or from somebody's perspective, a standing military. which I believe they have all 4 of them. So the question is ISIS capable of being a state? In modern society, I think a country or a state is a state or not is this country or the state being recognized by the majority of the world? So the real question here is, should other country, despite whatever they believe in, to recognize ISIS as a real state? And that's a reflection of this country's political standpoint on international affairs.
I'll leave it to other people to talk, but recognition, I mean, if we go into recognition, I can think of a lot of places that are recognized that shouldn't be, and vice versa.
Exactly, and fortunately, there's not a country in the world that's going to recognize ISIS as a state, thank God. But I think
I'm not saying we should recognize them as a state.
But I also think we make a mistake politically if we simply treat them as another terrorist organization. And that's something that I don't think we can do.
Right.
I wouldn't give them the credit as being a state because of their beliefs and the way they've gone about it. And the way they've gone about it. So I do think by labeling them a state, we give them too much credibility. But really the question is, how do we combat something like this that we've never ever faced in our entire history,
Right.
or in world history for that matter?
Here's the way I see it. Here's where the conflict lies. They're aspirationally a state,
Aspirationally, they
but
are.
operationally they are a terrorist group,
Yes.
and that's where the conflict arises.
Mhm.
And as you said, nobody's gonna recognize them as a state because apart from the 4 items that you listed, one of them is that the Uruguayan Accord. According to that, you need to be accepted as a state, going back to the UN conventions, and their actions are in what a state would do. So nobody's going to recognize them, regardless of what your aspirations are.
Go back to what Stephen said about them being like the mafia, because that's essentially, in a way, how they behave through extortion.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, through extortion, religious taxation, things of that nature, protection. I can pay you to protect my business, whatever. Intimidation, and that's the only reason I think that they've been able to gain ground.
But ISIL is more than that. They have a justice system.
I know they do.
They are
Education system.
I know they do.
And the mafia doesn't.
But
they educate in a different way.
But
They educate in a different way.
ultimately, the
Let's get
point
to it
is,
then.
though, and I'll let you talk in a minute. Ultimately, the point is that yes, they do have an education system. Yes, they do have a judicial system. Yes, they have a taxation system. They have a bureaucracy in place. But again, so does the mafia in all those instances. If we call them a state, then we have to treat them differently.
And then they have to start behaving differently.
Exactly right.
And if we call them a terrorist group too.
It's a different way of confrontation, though.
Right.
It's a totally different way of confrontation.
What do you, John? What do you guys believe?
Well, I just wanted to address the comment that they don't behave like a state, and of course they don't, because they don't have control. I mean, they're not the government. They are not the controlling force of the state. They're trying to become that, and one would hope that their behavior would change if they ever became.
Okay, I'll wait.
So
I'll
it's
wait, but I'd like to respond to
yeah.
Fred's point, but I'll wait and see what other people have to say. But there's an
What
equal
do you
story
think?
to this.
Yeah, go on.
I think it's important when you're talking about if ISIS is a state or not to define as to what a state is exactly, because I feel like in whatever context you are all referring to it in, I feel like you can interpret it either way. So I guess for a standard to be set there, you have to define what a state is.
There is a definition, actually. That's what I was talking about. There's
Yeah.
from the 50s, there's a Montevideo, Uruguay UN convention which lists all that. And I think you listed 4. It also has to have recognition from a sizable number of important players in the international system. I don't think they're going to ever have that. There are more eligible candidates who are fighting for it who haven't received it yet. Yeah, so, Lauren?
This is Lauren. Yeah, you guys.
Oh,
I'm going to be honest and say I don't know as much about ISIS as I have on other groups that I've researched. But at first glance, to me, it kind of seems like a more militantly organized IRA. That's just my feelings. The way that they have a goal, and some people don't understand that goal, but they do, and they take it to an extreme, and they show their strengths and what they're going to do by impacting other people. To me, it just kind of seems the same way. So
are you saying that their definition of who they are approximates closer to the definition of a terrorist organization rather than the definition of a state?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
Let me just add, Evan laying off camera. If we just say, where did they come from first? Because for people who don't know, you told me all their state, but how did they get to where they were? Who are they, and then what do they want?
Okay, who wants to take that?
Wasn't
John,
so
you want to switch?
I'm not entirely 100% sure, but Al Qaeda in 2004, when they were kind of disbanded, the reinterpreted group was ISIS. So they did kind of form from Al Qaeda, but it's not. They don't have the exact same political agenda as Al Qaeda.
We can go back a little bit to 2000 if we want. Al-Zarqawi was the one who formed the Al Qaeda in Iraq, and when the American forces invaded Iraq in 2003, he had run away, and then he was killed in 2006. But when it morphed into what John just said, they became so, and they started supporting the rebels in Syria. But then, like I said before, the rebels in Syria said, we don't want anything to do with these people because they are too violent even for us. And over time, they morphed into and even Al Qaeda said, these people are too violent for us. And so Al Qaeda said, we have no truck with these people. And so they became what we now know as the extremely violent form of ISIS, ISIL, whatever you want to call them.
I'm going to respond to just what you
I was
said.
just going to ask you to, actually.
Yes. Because I think this is important to the ultimate question I think that we want to get to at some point by the end here is, so what the heck do we do? We, the United States, or we the powers? But we can't respond because, of course, the answer is, well, we just bomb the hell out of them. But until we know who and what they are, we can't know what our response is. Because I think the response has to be some kind of a financial response. Money, choke them, right? That's what we really need, because bombing them, you can't bomb them when you don't know where they are or who they are or what they are. So we need to get to that. So let's get to what you guys are talking about, the Palestinians. Okay, I'm not going to go with the IRA in part because I'm not strongly familiar, but ultimately what did they want? They wanted to get away from, Northern Ireland wanted to separate from Britain. And we know this, but let's stick to this region. What did the Palestinian Liberation Organization want? Ultimately is the liberation of Palestine. Question was, which part of Palestine? All Palestine, part of Palestine, whatever. But there was a specific goal that they saw. That's what they were fighting for. End goal. Liberate Palestine. Question was, which part of Palestine or whatever. But there was a specific goal they saw. Then there was the question then, if and when they achieved that goal, and Hanan Shrawi, who's a really famous Palestinian woman, if you know who she is, finally said, after Oslo in 1993, when Bill Clinton was there and they're shaking hands and da-da-da, if you've ever seen those pictures on the White House lawn with Yitzhak Rabin, okay, if you've ever seen those pictures, Hanan Shrawi said, now comes the hard part. It was one thing to be terrorists. It's going to be a lot harder to build a country. Because now we can't go blowing things up. Now we got to sit down and build a country. That's a lot harder than blowing things up. It's easy to blow things up, but building a country is a lot harder. Is that really what ISIS wants, to build a country? Or do they like to just go around blowing things up because they're a bunch of pissed off people? And I'm personally going with the second thing. I don't think they really want to build a country. And I think, as Professor Santola was saying, we're giving them way too much credit to say these guys want to overstate. If they do, well, then they take over Syria and Iraq and create a new state and kumbaya. I'm not seeing that that's where they're headed. I think they just want to kill a lot of people and blow things up.
I think it's also that they don't want to just stop at a state. They want to keep it going and reach as many people as they can. So stop just establishing a state and having people in that state be what they want. And I think that's That's necessarily
which is
good.
a Sunni state and is scary.
Very scary.
Jay, I'm of the same opinion. I feel like they just want to just blow people up, like you said, just blow up and just create this sense of fear and just a sense of fear around the world. But then I don't think they have what is their end goal to build a state. Which I don't think they know even how to govern that or even go about doing that from the beginning.
They're not showing signs of it.
Exactly.
I just wanted to ask the question about I had read that I thought they were interested in establishing a caliphate, but that eventually that needed to be global. Like their goal was I thought their goal was to create a mirror image of themselves all over the world. So it wouldn't just be one state, it would be everybody would be controlled.
So they proclaim.
So here's how you can see their progression as an organization, which we might call as a terrorist organization. They might just think of themselves as an organization, and then morph that into a state in that particular region, and finally morph into something much bigger than that. It's also important it's not just what we think they are; it's also what they think they are. And I think and what they think they are. I know what you said, that we can't get into their heads, but at least we can figure out from their actions, is that itself changes for them, depending on the years. So probably they started off as the Al-Qaeda, which is an organization, but now from their perspective, I think the way I see it is, they have morphed into a state, a fledgling state, taking baby steps, and they're finding that we are preventing them from becoming a state.
Roger Evan Leininger. Aren't they apocalyptic? I don't think I've heard what Catherine Jones said, a sociologist, and I've heard that they want to establish a caliphate.
Yeah.
But do they really, or do they just want to end the world?
Right. When you see, I'm just going to jump in, I swear I'm not going to dominate here, but when you see that they're killing gays, that they're attacking Shiite mosques, that they're attacking Muslim, Sunni, Palestinian refugee camps, what is the state of theirs going to look like? Who's the enemy and who's the friend?
Nobody's going to be left.
Who's the enemy? How do we categorize anybody that's not them?
Right.
I mean, what's left? It's, I don't know what the hell they want, but it's scary.
I feel as though what you touched on before is that they're an aspiring radical Islamist state. I feel like that's the face through which they recruit and that they build their, their amount of people who join them, and that's like the face of their movement. But what in actuality, what it is what you're talking about. They just want to terrorize and to further their own agendas. Not like establishing the state is a stepping stone through which they can establish or achieve the goals that they actually want. I don't believe their goal is actually an established state. It's a stepping stone to achieve terrorism and furthering their agendas.
Yeah.
I don't think blowing up, and I disagree with Steve on this one, and also Jay. I don't think that blowing up buildings and people is their final objective. They're using it as a tool to create fear, because there are ways in which organizations legitimize themselves. It could be in a peaceful way through democracy and through more of the good deeds. It could also be through other deeds by which you legitimize yourself, which is through fear. The end goal, no, here's the thing, they would use fear now. That's what I'm saying. I think this is a very dynamic organization that is using fear now, but they are hoping that they can get through that phase where they have to use fear to control things, and then get to a phase where they can actually have a structured, stable situation.
I don't see it that way. I don't see it that way. I see that their destructiveness by attacking whoever does not agree with them.
That's the point. They're creating fear. That's it.
They are creating fear, but at the same time, by doing what they're doing, they're attracting followers as well.
That's the
and
point.
I think that's something. But that's not an endpoint for them.
No, it's not.
Okay, and a state, I don't think is an endpoint for them. I think the more that they can attract, the more power they get, the more they're going to become that much more destructive.
Right. What ultimate goal?
They don't think they have. I don't think they have an ultimate goal, and I don't think they're apocalyptic. Even though they've declared themselves a caliphate for all Muslims around the world. They don't recognize that in themselves, because otherwise they wouldn't be attacking Shia mosques. They wouldn't be attacking Palestinian refugee camps. It's the people that simply don't agree with them. They're going to go after, and by them actually doing that, they're attracting more adherents to themselves. I know that sounds bizarre, but it's true.
How is it any more bizarre than somebody walking into an Amish schoolhouse and shooting it up? Or walking into any place in this country and shooting it up? We can't get into their heads either.
No.
What is their end game? But if they all united and had a following and women found it attractive, I don't know. I mean, can you figure them out either?
I don't think you need to be able to realize an end game in their head to be able to understand them. I think the point is that you said, well, they don't have an end game. It's kind of like, I feel the best word to describe them is sadistic, in that when people try to push power on top of people, there's never an end goal.
Yeah,
it's just
they're
constant.
pushing back.
Like, because once people, like, I don't know,
power
just
for
take House of
power's
Cards
sake.
for an example. Once he becomes the president, he's still not done. He's still
Yeah.
pushing his agendas, and he's like, it's not going to stop. And you understand that there is no goal, and that's how you understand them.
You know, I kind of equated this degree of violence. Now, what they did to that poor Jordanian pilot and so many others with the beheadings and whatnot is kind of like the way in which the Nazis in 1919, as the DAP and later the NSDAP, began to attract adherents through their use of force. And that's what they did. They used force. And even when Goebbels said to Hitler in around 1926, you know, we got to tone it down a little bit because the newspapers are giving us bad press. And Hitler said, any press is good press. Maybe we should turn it up a notch. And that's exactly what these guys are doing. And I see it. I don't know if it's an appropriate analogy.
But the Nazis a state?
No, not in 1926. In reality, the Nazi Germany didn't formulate until August 1934. But they were working inside a state. What's that, Russian?
That's historical aspirational for these people.
That's not exactly reassuring.
No, it's not.
It's not. That's my whole point.
But the point is the competition for adherence via violence.
Exactly. Yeah.
We had a hand up there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jake.
To the go thing, well, it really depends on how you look at it. Maybe, well, it's absolutely no doubt the way we look at it. They have prisoners, they beheaded them, it's absolute brutality and tyrants like. But I think they have ultimately got to be a nation or country or a belief that actually people won't follow. Because I think the way ISIS look at those sacrifices, they look at as sacrifices, just as any great revolution throughout history. Any revolution will bring along collateral damage and sacrifices. And so I think with that, they're actually marching towards, maybe misguided, but actually really misguided, way to an ultimate goal of some sort of thing they want to form. It can be dominating the Middle East and become a rogue country, or maybe dominating the entire world. But I think there's an ultimate goal for the ISIS group that they are pursuing it in their own way.
They also published a map. I have seen the map from them that it includes many parts of Middle East, European, and even Africa. It looks like they're trying to come to a big empire or something like that. An Islamic empire that used to be 1,000 years ago. So this is ultimate goal, what they have. And this is what they are trying to do. They're trying to attract followers from all around the world so that they can fight and they can reach to these goals. But still, I think there's one big question. How they reach this point? If we answer this one, then we can prevent them from their next step, the next move.
Can we move on to that question then?
I don't want to even go there, how they got to this point. I think that, you know, we need to analyze how they got to this point?
So there are two questions.
Absolutely.
Here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think the follow-up question would be, what do we do now?
Now,
regardless of who they are, what they are, what do we do now?
And Stephen's right, we can't bomb them into submission.
And the thing is, do we
works.
need to know the cause of their evolution to actually decide on the actions
to be taken?
So there you go, two questions at the same time.
Yeah, I think if you said they have their plans for the future somewhat mapped out, is that what you said?
They publish that.
Yeah, well, I think it kind of just makes me think about U.S. government, how all, or not all legislation, but most legislation is wrapped in ulterior motives, in that if you publish something, it's like I said, like you have a face to attract followers, but then you actually have what you actually want. And you use that face that you're putting up to attract people to achieve your goal, which the people who are following you might not believe in, but hey, you still got the followers because you put up an image that they like and they follow you and you tell them what to do because they're blinded by the face that you put up. So.
Catherine Jones, sociology professor. There was another article in The Guardian, which is the newspaper I usually read, which was kind of an expose of the ways that they're recruiting young women from Europe mainly, but also from other places, to come to where they are with this quote-unquote state that they've created, very skillfully using social media to recruit. And there was in text speak, a message from a young girl, very young, saying, when you become the wife of a martyr, you get lots of stuff. And so come, basically. And so the idea, and I'm really intrigued as to what, I hear what Steve's saying about the sort of attraction of this aggressive kind of masculinity for women, these young women. But it seems to me that there's something else pretty fundamental going on in this rejection of European values and the embracing of these incredibly violent kinds of ideas that these young women are really attracted to, and also young men who want to go and fight for them. So I'm wondering if the panel could speak to that gender issue and the Western versus ISIS issue a little bit.
I can try, and you can accept the well, I'm going to give it a quick shot, and then you all can. First of all, because there is an academic aspect to it. It's not just speculation. I mean, you got to study the craft. You got to be in the region. I'm sorry. And what's more attractive, Brad Pitt with or without the scruff? I mean, you guys love this stuff. At least the heterosexual women in the room do. There's an attractiveness to all of this. There's that dirty, filthy. That draws these young women. It's hot.
Kind of
in addition with, they do have their salary. $40 million a month, according to the New York Times, is being $40 million a month from oil is being channeled to ISIS. They take over the land and they sell the oil, and they're selling the antiquities, like from Palmyra, where I was only 5 years ago. I walked. If you've seen those gorgeous antiquities, I was there. I wouldn't go back now. So there's something attractive to the men. You watch these movies, you see these macho guys, and these wimpy dudes are like, ooh, I could be one of those guys and get the girl. Again, think of these clowns who are shooting up schools. They're nobodies over here. And over there, suddenly they're in a Schwarzenegger movie. And to become a shaheed, become, as you say, a martyr. But shaheed, the Arabic means you're a witness. You're a witness to Allah. As in mujahideen, you become a witness. You're a fighter for the cause, for jihad, if you will. This stuff is deep and meaningful. We as Americans say, what a bunch of hooey. But they're doing it. And then there's Americans who are doing it too and waving the flag, and we laugh at them too. But listen to country music. Listen to 92.5 and you'll get it. But you say that's hooey. So I agree with you, Catherine. But this is real for people.
We talked a little bit about this in human rights this past week, but do you think that people just join ISIS just because they for the sense of the group, that they just have the natural affinity to want to be a part of something and not be on the outside?
Well, I was going to say two things. I find it very crazy how the rise of ISIS in relation to social media is just completely outlandish, and how they've kind of hopped on that bandwagon and kind of capitalized on that. I find it very crazy. And also, when I was writing my paper, just focusing on in Europe in general, it's not just young females, it's just the youth, and they a lot of, especially Muslim youth in Europe, they feel isolated because there's not really a good kind of place for multicultural groups to thrive, and like especially in like Great Britain, like they let these cultural groups kind of do what they want, and that causes more isolation. So these youth kind of feel isolated within the whole, and that's why a lot of them like join groups like
You
ISIL.
can't imagine minorities feeling isolated in a dominant group. I'm sure there's people in the room who can't imagine that either.
Well, I was
Good
gonna,
man.
I was gonna say another thing too, like I mean, real specific, like ISIS, the videos that they do, they're very good psychological tactics. I mean, they
Very
go,
savvy.
yes,
They are savvy.
They go into like even like I saw something like this guy was just like petting a cat, and he was telling like the viewer like, come, like we're not like bad people, like we're very soft individuals.
We have cats.
Yeah.
I would be there.
They're Muslim cats.
I love
The
cats.
Sunni cats.
And they're you know just like laughing with each other, and I mean people get easily brainwashed, and kids are embedded in social media today. It's what they do.
I don't know. I kind of want to say like I know kind of focus on like how ISIS is attracting other people from other countries, but I feel like it's a little more important to see how ISIS is growing power within where they're at right now, because I feel like the social media, they could attract like some random people, this person, that person, who maybe feel a little left out here and there, but I think it's more interesting on how they're attracting power within their own, where they live, because those people, it has to be more than just they're feeling outside. The people where they're attracting within has to be more about like group think mentality, which is a lot more dangerous, because like that type you just can't bomb and go away, because if you just bomb and go away, the people are still going to be that way thinking. So even if you kill ISIS, the people who claim they're ISIS, the people are still going to have that type of, the people who work around the area are still going to think that way and just form their own group similar to ISIS.
Yeah, but most of the people in that territory hate ISIS.
Yeah, 4 million have been
Like,
displaced
everyone
in
thinks
Iraq
that, yeah.
since the rise of ISIS.
Everyone thinks that in the territory, like,
Yeah.
They
Look at what's going on in Europe.
They just put up with them because they have no other option.
Well, they're fleeing.
Yeah, some of them are fleeing, some just putting up with them.
8,000 a day to Europe.
Yeah.
Who's next?
Just going back to the whole attractiveness of ISIS, I mean, combined with like the lack of knowledge of what their end goals are, right? No one really knows what their end goals are, but then combined with lack of opportunity in other areas, with just the attractiveness of being part of something greater than yourself. And I feel like that becomes, that's what really attracts the young men to go fight.
I think that's what Brittany was addressing.
Like on to what we should do, what the rest of the world should do. Yeah, let's just take a step forward here. Let's lurch forward.
No, you're right.
That's an excellent point, Jim.
Yeah. It's a very good point.
It's an
And
excellent
who
point.
doesn't feel that, and feeling isolated and so forth.
Yeah.
You know, if you feel that, suddenly a sense of
You
purpose.
have a greater sense of self-worth,
Right.
and then you join these places.
Just one point about joining women to this group. So, looking from outside, we may not be able to understand what they feel. But to just compare this one, like 2-3 years ago, there were something called Nekah jihadists. I don't know whether you have heard those or not. In some Muslim countries, these women voluntarily go there and let these people abuse them sexually, because they thought this way they would go to heaven. And so some of these women also, they do the same thing. These guys from wherever they are through social media, they kind of persuade these guys, if you come here, if you fight for us, you go to heaven. And this is the only way that you can go to heaven. Otherwise, you're in hell. So, and I know these guys being radical Muslim, so they believe these guys.
And it's totally anti-Islamic. It's insane.
Yeah.
Just like the way they're treating women, the way they're treating gays. I mean, what they're doing is just, this is not according to the principles of Sharia. It's insane.
Which is talking
but
about
it is true according to their own version of
Their
Sharia.
version.
Yeah, their version. But there are so many versions of Islam, and each one says, "I'm right, you are wrong." So there are several. This is why we have so many fights in Middle East. So they have their own version and say whoever is not with us, even if they are Sunnis, they're going to kill them.
I think what you have is powerless people having power,
Mhm.
violent power. What is better than someone who's been having nothing their whole lives, growing up in poor, unbelievably horrible places, suddenly to rise up in front of a camera and behead someone? Look, who am I? I'm somebody. I'm strong. And you're getting these people who have been disenfranchised suddenly saying, I am in charge. And I don't think it goes beyond that. I don't think they've thought beyond that. It's like the 90-pound weakling suddenly going to the gym and kicking some major butt at the beach. And without any other plan other than the joy of kicking some major butt at the beach. With these women you spoke about, they have nothing either. So this is a way of having something. I don't think it goes beyond that. That's what characterizes the unbelievable violence. It's a way of showing, look how powerful we are.
I think that is an accurate description of the followers and the people who join the movement, but there's a leadership that has a goal. There's got to be some kind of goal that they're working towards. It's not a whole organization just wanting to beat somebody else. I mean, that's the people who join.
Plus, I can't say that all the people flocking to ISIS, ISIL, whatever, are disenfranchised. Jihad Johnny came from a middle class, from what I understand, a middle class background in Great Britain. The 9/11 terrorists were all pretty well off.
But it's not just economic.
Oh, I know. I understand that.
There's this whole social, economic, gendered, weird, there's a lot going on here than just they're a bunch of crazy people. And as soon as you dismiss them as a bunch of crazy people, you're screwed. Then you bomb the hell out of them.
Yeah, and that's not going to work.
And that's not going to work.
Well, that brings us where we should be right now, where Raju wants to be.
And also, I just want to issue a kind of a clarification here. They are not a bunch of crazy people. Why? Because these are people who were in the Iraqi government before we killed Saddam Hussein.
Yeah, that's a good point.
These are Sunnis who were in the administration. These are statesmen, the people who have run the state. That's what I'm saying, that their aspirations are much bigger. And when the new government came in, which we put in, which is a Shia government, these people felt disenfranchised because they felt powerless. And then we left in 2011, and there was a vacuum to which the ISIL or ISIS, they jumped in, and the not the spiritual leader al-Baghdadi, but the ones below him are people who have tremendous experience running a state. They did that with Saddam Hussein, so they know what they're doing and they have a plan. We haven't been smart enough to figure it out.
Generals.
Yeah. So let's just with the rest
of
the time, let's move
forward.
What can we do, knowing what we know? Maybe people who have been spoken can at this point jump in and say, what should we do? Like, what if it's by we should decide who this we is, first of all.
I think one of the biggest things, and like you mentioned, something that we've never had before was the impact of social media.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that we really have to do is, even more so than we are now, really monitor that social media, because that's where they're recruiting their next generation. So if we can kind of intercept that, I know we're not going to get it perfect, but start looking at that. That would be the first step.
I don't know. Would you be against monitoring social media? Because I feel like that could just lead to a whole bunch of other stuff that wouldn't be good. But I feel like probably the best thing, instead of monitoring social media, just keep getting information out. Because just coming from this talk, I learned a lot more information than I've heard anyone else, and I do try to listen to media and read articles. But I feel like just giving more information to let everybody know, so that there's still, no matter what you do, there's going to be people that want to join this type of stuff. But you just have to keep getting more information out to limit that information, and also maybe just try to stop foreigners from going into the country, and then somehow let the ISIS try to just choke them. So they're gonna run out of resources eventually if they just keep everybody's fleeing from them from that country. So eventually if we try and just keep everybody else informed, they might just die out themselves.
Yeah, I think it would be, like you said, I think it would be a mistake to start to monitor. Well, I guess it's good to monitor social media, but I guess to meet in the middle there, let them do whatever they want to do on social media. But the people who, it's like you said, the people who are being recruited on social media are trying to elevate their lives, trying to find the next high. The problem isn't with stopping what they're doing right now, but just have the people be educated. Don't put things on the news about ISIS just for shock value and ratings. Like, try to educate people, try to tell them why this is bad, what it means, what it's going to mean in the future, and they'll just be more educated and be able to make more educated decisions.
I was going to agree with him, what he was saying. So, like, I think it's silly to think that we're not already monitoring it. Like, our government is absolutely monitoring the activity already. But there's always going to be those types of people that want to get the next high and join the kind of
No, I agree that we are monitoring it. I think the problem is kind of similar to what he said. We have to make sure that, especially our kids, because there's nothing really that we can do about, kids in other countries. What we should worry about is our own country first. So making sure that our kids are seeing, the correct information, not seeing it as this glorified, power trip.
I just don't think that, there's always going to be those type of people that want to get the next high. And I personally believe that our government is probably monitoring all countries' social media. They are.
We are.
They might be monitoring this.
Yeah, I was just going to say, there's the bug right there.
No, that camera, I think he's the agent.
Quick reminder just to state names as you're speaking for the audio.
My name is Jan Terra. I think you make an interesting point about monitoring social media and getting good information out instead of just shock value information. But how do you think that works towards the government's agenda? Like, obviously, we love, like, as a country, we love war, we profit off war. So what do you think a government's going to do towards, like, putting out the information that's going to keep people away when one half of that is them wanting to continue that fight so the country keeps profiting? And it allows us to keep a stranglehold of soldiers in that area.
I see ISIS a bit as like a word that hasn't really been thrown out, but more of a network. Their sort of boundaries go past like the idea of a state or a certain territory. They reach different continents, different people through the use of social media and things like that. I think maybe to respond to them is breaking off pieces of their network, cutting them apart, being able to take down their organization, because you see ISIS is a part of a network that's been going on for a while. They came from Al-Qaeda, and eradicating them or kind of taking them out would probably lead to another group or just a continuation of the network. That's a good point.
I think as one of you guys mentioned, they have money. They pay lots of money to these people. So one way is to cut their income.
Financial noose.
Yeah, financial. And the other one is to cut the way they gain all of these weapons. I don't know where they get, but they have all kinds of weapons, much better than the other side.
Yeah.
That's why they're better.
Their funding is almost $2 billion.
Yeah.
$2 billion.
The problem is that they control, 60% of Syria's oil reserve right now.
Right. That's number 3 for revenue.
That's what I said, 40 million a month.
Yeah, how do we need
we
to
can
strangle
bomb
that?
all of those oil wells. So that's, if you want to bomb them,
We're not going to bomb the oil. Sorry, I know you're waiting. 30 seconds. We're not going to bomb them because we're buying that oil. We are not. We know who's
as is Assad and
we
as
know
is
who's
the
supplying
Turks.
them. We know who's cooperating with them. It's our best friends, like the Saudis and so forth.
Yeah, that's a problem.
We know who works with them. We know the Chinese. We know all of this. You think we don't know, and that's the problem.
And they are well armed, and where they got a lot of that is that they're ours.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
as the Iraqi,
Exactly.
as the state forces dropped their stuff and took off, they picked up American weaponry and
We
moved on.
never got into the
So
topic
they are-
we should have, which
they
was,
are
of
very
course,
well armed.
our friend Putin,
It's
who was
ours.
there yesterday,
Yes.
and that whole issue.
That's next week.
Yeah. so it's not.
I have a lot to say
It's
about
impossible
that
to kill this thing when half of our best friends are cooperating with them.
Hi, my name is Ashley. I wanted to highlight on a couple of points pretty quickly. So we keep using the term "we." Who are we?
Yeah, I said that. Yeah, we should clarify
So
that.
this is one big dot, and terrorist groups don't care about borders. So who is we? Are we solving this problem collectively, or are we enhancing and making this problem worse collectively? And then the second issue is the fact that the terrorist group isn't just a dot, it's a massive worldwide ripple effect. You've got millions of displaced refugees, which not only is terrorism a problem, but how are we addressing the fact that we now have millions of refugees that don't have a place to call home? How are we addressing the social and humanitarian issues that this has caused?
That's for the week after.
Yeah. But no, I mean, just again, this is what I'm saying is this is a global, if not a regional issue. So you've got the Palestinian-Israeli thing is going on right now, but in truth, we're we, the United States, when I say we, I mean the U.S., capital U, capital S, we're working with the Israelis, but of course the Israelis are working with the Saudis, but nobody wants to acknowledge that. But in the meantime, the Saudis are working with ISIS, but nobody wants to acknowledge that. And in the meantime, so the we is the entire planet. We're all working together, but we all work against one another. And then in the meantime, Putin's over there. So there's what's going on in the front and there's what's going on in the back. So that's why we in this room are all freaked out. But then a few years back, we were all freaked out about Al-Qaeda. Well, now we know where that is. And when we all were growing up, we were freaked out about the Soviets who were going to nuke us to kingdom come. Now that one's gone. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying don't worry about this. But my personal take is ISIS is going to come and go, and then there's going to be another boogeyman. Because if there isn't, whoever said back here that we're always at war, we got to be at war with somebody.
The CIA needs war.
Because, that's
what we do best.
The Chinese friends need the income. So there's always got to be somebody.
Right, I think where credit is due, ISIS has a lot of weapons, but their biggest weapon is obviously terror, and it's not something that's necessarily tangible. They exact that through tangible things like guns and blades and stuff like that, and you have to think about who the target of terror is, which is everybody. It's not just the army, the people who are fighting, or not that there's army fighting them right now, but you have to think about the target, which is everyone who has a TV, everyone who reads the newspaper, and if the weapon that they use is terror, you have to think about how can the target audience defend themselves against terror. And that's through what I was talking about before, like the news only reporting on things that will give shock value, the things that will make them sales. And you have to tell them what they can do as individuals, because they're going to say like, oh, ISIS is terrible, what are we going to do to fix it? We're just going to bomb them and cut off their economy. That's not going to help the individual as to what they can do as a person to fix the problem. Like, you need to tell them, like, oh, just join the group and do whatever you need to do there, but like, what can we do here to help? That's what I feel like more of a focus needs to be put on to solve.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying. And plus, yeah, I also agree that they're going to come and go, but they also come in and go, and they're destroying 2,000 years of architectural history, which is like very scary.
Yeah, it is.
And the generations after us are really not going to, know that kind of
They'll
stuff.
have pictures.
So
it's very
do we have any solutions?
I think one ultimate solution after getting rid of this one, but if you get rid of them a few years after that, the second one will come.
Mm-hmm.
So one ultimate solution would be to support governments that kind of engage all parties there. I don't know how, but something that, especially these students, if they see that they are empowered and there are so many of them in the country, so they gather together and just make another Al-Qaeda or something like this. So we have to support these governments. I believe previous Syrian government, before this one, his dad, that was a good one.
Yeah.
That was a good one. So, but now this guy is crazy. So, but the previous one was good because all parties in the country, they had power, and so there wasn't any fight in the country. So sometimes it's like this, although there might be some problem inside, but from outside, they have stable country, and this is good for all countries.
Okay.
This is a problem that has been kind of building over a great amount of time. I mean, way back. I mean, of course, this could be traced way back before the last century, And every time we try to go in there militarily and with force and try to change what's going on there, we basically make it worse. And the we I'm talking about is the U.S. And the only way that this is going to get fixed is, the solution to this is books. You need to create almost an inoculation of knowledge and good education around the area to combat this. And it has to be the people from that region.
Yeah.
Because we can't fix it for them.
Yeah, you hit upon a classic mistake the West always keeps making, that we try to use military solutions for a political problem. Use military solutions for a military problem. You don't use a military solution for a political problem.
But once you start...
We've been doing that so much.
Sykes-Picot was 1916, The splitting and the creation of Iraq to begin with was a mistake. in the creation of Syria. But we can't undo the
What's been
things that, and in this case it wasn't we, it was, well, there are a few critics in the room. You know what I mean? We didn't do it, but somebody did do it, and now we're continuing the mistakes of the past. I'm just saying.
No, I agree completely. Anytime you look anywhere in the world where there's fighting, Britain's been there. I wanted to just, we were reading something for class for next week about the Western response to the Arab Spring being one of the kind of causes of this in a way. Not causes, but a contributing factor, because although the Arab Spring was, people were wanting democracy, some of the Western countries, France was mentioned, and I guess the US, given that we had been supportive of the Egyptian regime before, before the Arab Spring, we weren't, so the West wasn't so happy about the idea of democracy in the Middle East if it meant people who weren't friendly to us coming to power. But that is something that we have stood with. That happened 3 or 4 years ago. I can't remember the exact date, but that's something that we've stood by and let happen. So in our, while we've been adults. So how can we, we talk about problems with the creation of Iraq and Syria, but the stuff that happened 4 years ago has these knock-on effects as well. So I guess, we listen to presidents saying we want democracy, we want to spread freedom, we want to spread peace, but we can't, I don't know if we can really believe, I know it's a big work, we can't believe politicians. How are we supposed to move forward knowing that
part of
this
the
has
problem
happened?
part of the problem is that we think that we can do a lot of things there. It's actually, it's for them. I think it's a little preposterous for us to think that we can fix the world's problems. And by we, I mean any outsider. It's just nonsense. It's just nonsense. Yeah.
But that's the thing. We created this stuff, and when I say we, the West, I'll say.
Yeah.
And then,
I think we're on time, but why don't we leave a last say to a student rather than a faculty member, on solutions or potential ways of dealing with all this?
No pressure.
Jimmy, go ahead.
Part of the solution is we have to acknowledge that it's in the long run our fault. We created groups like this. We have funded groups like this, starting in the Cold War and even before that. So we, as a country, have to acknowledge our role in beginning and starting these groups. And we have to learn from our past and how, we funded Al-Qaeda and that eventually leads into something like ISIS. We have to learn from our past and see what mistakes we made and then try something different or find a better solution.
On that
On that note, I guess we're done. Yes.
I'd like to thank everyone.